Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
You know what I have to do?
What?
I have to take my wife's car apart to get the battery out of it because the battery died. And then I have to bring the battery to Walmart, get a new battery, and put it in the car, all in the next, couple hours before I get going. So
That sounds great.
yeah,
You mean,
but
that sounds, I have a lot of questions. You are of means. You could just bring it somewhere. You have options.
how long have we been doing this pod? I think you should, you know me well
Yeah,
enough that
yeah.
you know that I don't have
I know.
options.
I know you don't. I know.
Well, it got me thinking, actually. I was like, I'd say normally I don't get kind of stressed out over stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. You can answer that for yourself quietly to yourself, not out loud. But yeah, so we're trying to get ready to go to the Boundary Waters.
Yep.
And
Today.
my wife sends me a text like, "Hey, the car doesn't start." I'm like, "Are you kidding? We got to leave soon."
Yeah.
So
It's only a
now,
couple of
I
years
have to
old.
deal with all this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh. How's
But it
that
got me
feel?
thinking, okay, settle down. It'll work itself out.
Mhm.
But I found myself really getting into this, I have to pack all this stuff, and I have to go fix the car,
Yeah.
and I have to do
Yep.
this, and
The
I have to do that.
I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And then I
pressure.
had to take a moment and say, okay, hold on.
You just did it again.
Like,
I had to take a moment. Same thing.
that's true.
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
But I took that moment
Uh-huh.
to say, well, I have a car,
Yeah.
so I get to go change its battery.
Yeah.
If I didn't have a
Yeah.
car, I wouldn't get to go to the Boundary Waters.
Right.
I don't have to pack all this stuff. I get to pack all this stuff
Mhm.
because I get to go to the Boundary Waters.
With your son. Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting into this real kind of negative cycle for a bit, but then I realized it's really fortunate that
Mhm.
I get to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So quit feeling so bad, sorry for myself.
Well, I think that's a really, really typical human response to things. In my coaching, I would say at least half of my coaching calls, at least half, as we are trying to move through or grow ourselves or develop or get out of patterns that we are in,
Mhm.
that whole, well, I have to, it's just making assumptions about what is when it's really not.
Mhm.
That's a very typical thing that people go through. And it's one of the hardest things to catch in yourself is the language that you use when you're thinking about things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent of the language you use shapes your thinking.
Mhm. Mhm. And
So
vice versa. And vice versa, what you think changes your language. There's an
language.
absolute link there.
So you can observe how you're feeling based on the words you're choosing.
Yeah.
And sometimes just changing some of those words in your own self-talk
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
how you feel about a thing. We call that reframing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
being sometimes I'm a real stickler around some words,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
but for good reason, not
Mhm.
just because I'm the grammar Nazi or anything. I'm far from that. But I'm a stickler on some words mostly because of the feeling
Mhm.
that they are associated with.
Well, I was just thinking back to some of the times that you and I have been doing some marketing meetings or whiteboarding, creative meetings and putting stuff up on the board and like you see any group of people when they're trying to work things out, like even if there's a big idea they're trying to emerge with, then you can see people get hung up on words all the time. Like people
Hmm.
really, really can get hung up on words. But what's really funny about it is like, like if your words form your thoughts, if your thoughts then educate you or your thoughts inform you about what words to use, the one thing that you haven't even really taken into account is the feelings that are evoked
Mm.
um, from your thoughts and from your words. And, in the coaching conversations, it's really all about making sure that your feelings are tapped in too, right? So that you
Hmm.
can start to adjust. But yeah, it's a really dynamic thing. It's a very, very challenging thing, even if like let's say you and I are like trying to whatever issue process. Let's say we've got a let's say we've got a problem with somebody.
Wait, wait, wait. Yeah, hold on. I think you're using the word issue process in a different way than a lot of people might think.
What do you mean?
Well, so when you and I use the word issue process,
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that's like there's a business problem we need to solve through, or there's like a
Yeah.
project we need to figure out the solution
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like a problem solving activity.
What did I say?
Right.
That's different.
You said issue processing, but like you could also take issue processing as like more like a relationship or emotional
Oh.
issue.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, 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 you're right, you're right. Yeah, no, I was
yeah.
referring it to the first. Okay, thank you for the clarification. See?
You're using your
Words.
business nomenclature.
Stop doing that,
For
it's
being
confusing.
too businessy. We
But
also work on our mission statement and our value
and
propositions
what's our
and our
hedgehog?
go-to-market
Oh
strategy.
god. But I do think that it's really interesting because people will get hung up on certain words and they can't get off of them. Like, the stories they tell themselves are the same
Mhm,
thing over and over and over again. And all with the guise of, no, I'm learning. I'm just trying to, like I have to do it this way. This is how I process. I have to say it like that. Um,
mhm,
I have to explain it this way to everybody because otherwise people aren't going to understand.
mhm.
It's it's really interesting how we will use words to coerce ourselves or to hold ourselves in a place that we don't want to be.
Yeah.
And the have
Yeah,
to
so
and get to, those 2 are really diametrically opposite.
yeah, so this have I have to
Mhm,
phrasing, I think is super interesting to dive into because we've been talking about like I have to kind of go do a task or
mhm.
like there's something I don't really want to do,
Yeah, that's it.
but I have to go do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
There's like an external responsibility, an external circumstance has happened,
yeah.
and now
Outs
I'm being forced to go do something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's one way of describing have to.
Mhm,
But there's a couple others as you're talking is there's a responsibility kind of have to.
mhm,
Like I have to go to work,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And or I have to like do
Pay my
things to support
bills.
my I
Yeah,
have to
right.
do, I have to do these things. Well, those are kind of like self-imposed have tos,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like, do you have to?
yeah. Well,
I mean, maybe you don't.
yeah.
But
Those are just like even activities that you're talking about, but, like if we're really wanting to frame this, you also know people, we all know people that are have to people. Their
mm,
whole personality is very much as though they're being dragged through life
yeah, right,
with a
exactly.
attitude that's like, "I never get to choose for
Yeah.
myself. I
Drag
have
through
to
life
do all this."
kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are really negative, right? That's a negative
Yeah.
experience, and how many of us can sense when someone's like that, and how many of us will sit right with them and go, "Oh, yeah, you're so
Mhm.
fun to be with." No, we don't like
Yeah.
that. Like, we usually try to
Yeah.
shy away from that.
Yeah. I find a lot of times, like, my lovely wife will point this out that a lot of my have tos are totally self-imposed.
Yeah,
Like, like
yeah.
I have
Mhm.
to go, rebuild this trailer so a canoe fits better on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do you have to
Can I
do
just
that?
riff on this for a
No.
minute with
It's
you?
like
Yeah, let me just plus one that. So we have a wedding coming up. Our daughter's getting married,
uh-huh.
and it's our daughter's getting married at our home, and we're also having the reception at our home.
It sounds
Uh,
like you have a lot of have tos coming
I
up.
don't, I don't, but you should see Mitch's list of have tos, and it's crazy town. It's stuff like I have to reseed the grass in 752 spots of the yard. Okay, we have like
Yeah.
18 acres. Okay.
Right.
Um, I have to clean the garage. Okay, nobody's even going to be in the garage. The list is it just goes on and
Yeah.
on and on. And the
Yeah, I
level of
have to
pressure.
pick up all the rocks, wash them individually, and put them back.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
I get him.
I know you guys. I know. I always said that. I always say that. Oh, yeah, but there are the self-imposed tasks, but there are also, and I think this is a really big thing I wanna make sure we're talking about in here, is the self-imposed way of being and feeling that we force on ourselves in a lot of things.
Mhm.
You know, the number one goal in coaching for people is to understand what their triggers are and move through them so that they
Mhm.
can be happier, centered, more stable, more, um, higher functioning, do better in their roles, get better roles. Like it's always this whole this trajectory of getting better.
Mm.
And this single way of thinking absolutely prevents growth. 100%.
Mm.
It prevents people from being able to move through anything because it's like, well, I have to get better at this. I have to stop treating people like this. I have to get better in my communication. All right. What's the energy that you kick out when you say it like that? Like, I have to do
Yeah.
this. You don't want to. Your body and your soul and your
Yeah.
energy, everything is like, why would I? I don't want to do it that. Why? I feel
Yeah.
forced.
Well, and then you get the backside of that
Hmm.
because you tell yourself you have to do something,
Hmm.
then you don't do it,
Hmm.
and then you feel bad about it,
Absolutely. You guilt and
right?
shame
And then that's
yourself.
just a spiral.
Hmm.
Like, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. So like that part's interesting.
Mhm.
Um, like how your self talk and your own expectations
Yeah, it's all that.
are 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 creating that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, you can see it really in big global examples with people that are just generally more negative personality types. Like, you can
Hmm.
see that coming a mile away, right? You can tell in meetings or you can tell in conversations with people when when you can feel enthusiasm and excitement from someone when they say, I get to go do
Hmm.
this. Like, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. And the energy behind that is the I get to energy.
Yep.
Like, "Oh my gosh, we're
Yep.
going on a family trip and we're gonna go do these things and it's so awesome and we're gonna get this camper and we're gonna" all of
Yep.
that stuff. Or we're gonna add on to our house or all of that. You feel the energy behind that, which is,
Yep.
um, o open and enthusiastic and happy.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about have tos in the context of habits.
Mm,
Like, I have to brush my teeth every morning.
mhm. That's boring. Do I have to?
Yeah, you have to. You don't have to. We're doing this podcast, like via a video call, so I don't care if you brush your teeth or not. If we were in person, I would. Then you would have to. I think there's a lot of things that we have turned into a habitual part of our life
Yes.
that we think we have to keep doing,
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
and then we don't do it. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
but I have to do that.
Yeah.
What? But I always like to challenge people when they say they have to do something,
Mhm.
and just like, do you have to?
Yeah.
Like, just ask a question. Like, do you really? It sounds actually kind of smarmy, and I actually totally mean it to be smarmy. So
Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
not
Right.
going to change. But it's like, do you really have to brush your teeth every
Yeah.
day? No,
Yeah.
we're not.
Kinda.
We're not trying to promote poor, oral hygiene here. So,
Only brush and floss the ones you want to keep. That's all.
but there's a lot of things that we have developed into habits over
Yeah.
the years
Mhm.
that we feel that we have to do them.
Mhm.
But again, kind of like looking at those and then maybe recontextualizing them
Mhm.
again. So if you skip it, you're not so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just maybe kind of understand like some of those things are just habits that you're just
Yeah.
autopilot on, and
Yeah.
maybe check those out.
Yeah. I mean, there's like physical habits like you're talking about, like
Yeah.
exercise or taking a walk
Yep.
or eating well or
There's emotional reaction
yep.
habits.
Yes. Like every time
Yeah.
somebody says something, if you find yourself getting defensive, that's usually a habit.
Yep.
Could be attached to a particular experience or conversation, but yeah, that's definitely habitual. Thinking
Yeah.
patterns,
Yep.
those are
All
very
right.
habitual.
And then moving to my favorite have to.
Oh, what is
Do
that?
you know what this one is?
No.
Like, you didn't think I had a list, but I had a list.
Of course you did. Oh, when will I learn?
um, social have tos.
Oh, of course.
You know how many times in my life I'm like,
Uh-huh.
ugh, I have to go to this meeting. I have to go have coffee with this person. I have to go
Uh,
do this lunch thing. I have to go to this party. I have to go meet up with these people.
yeah.
I I I put, I would say the number one have to like language in my life is around social stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you something. Let me just ask you something. If you if you were to change your language
Hmm.
about that, okay? And you were to shift your thoughts by even just one or two words like we've been talking about.
I know, right?
Well, no, no, no. No, no, this isn't I'm
Yeah.
not
Okay.
being obvious. I'm like
Okay.
I'm seriously asking you. This is the thing. How would it change do you think it would change your feeling?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, just from reflection, I guess.
Mhm.
Because like, so here's a example. So um kind of like, I don't know, high school, college group of
Yeah.
friends. As we got into our 20s, everyone was kind of getting married and then
Mhm.
started to have kids. And we started this thing that we called Restaurant Club, where
Mm.
once a month we would all still try to go
Well, that's a good
uh,
idea.
and like, yeah, go to a restaurant and eat together. It was probably not once a month. It was probably like once a quarter or something. Um,
I like that
but yeah, like
idea.
a couple times a year,
Yeah.
Restaurant Club.
Yep.
And what worked well about it is that it was kind of like, oh, and we rotated it. So it's like, um, we were responsible for Restaurant Club. So we coordinated it,
Mhm.
picked the date, picked the time, picked the restaurant,
Yeah.
and then it moved to like the next
Sure,
person.
sure.
And so it just kind of like perpetuated, um, which was nice, but all the time, every single time Restaurant Club rolled around, I'm like, ugh, I have to go to Restaurant Club. And the energy that I would bring to Restaurant Club with my friends was pretty grumpy. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's going to be 14 people there. And then when the check comes around, no one's going to want to figure it out. And, you know, like we got to have to ask this poor server to split the check 14
Oh
ways. And
my god.
you know what I mean? And then, you know, and then John's going to get all grumpy because he didn't eat any of the cheese curds. And oh my God, you know. so,
What a
so
dip.
I know, yeah, I know I went into those events
Yeah.
with a pretty poor attitude, and I think I got some pretty poor results. And actually, so much so that we stopped going.
Do they still do it?
They totally still do it.
Get
I
out.
don't go.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's been going on for
Wow.
like 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, I'm so torn
but
right now because you just gave such
because
good
I,
stuff to talk about, but I just wanna absolutely tease you so hard right now.
but the thing is, like now with a bit more like self awareness around
Yeah.
that situation,
Yeah.
why like I have the opportunity, like I have a bunch of super long term time friends,
Yeah. Right.
like a very loving, supportive environment. I get to go have,
Yeah.
like, I have the means to go to a restaurant
Yeah.
and pay for food. You know what I mean? I
Well,
get to go do these things, but there's like all this social stuff
yeah,
that
pressure.
made that turn into a have to
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, I think
but I didn't really realize all that stuff was going on.
I think that, you know, again, as we've gotten older, as we get older, things do change. Like, I think that all of this is not forcing ourselves to want to be okay with things that are not okay for us, but like just being open to this idea that we have a lot more control over how we're feeling about something, and even things that we think we're casting to the wind and we have no control over is very typically untrue. You know, it's
Mhm,
just not true. And so many times you may even have not you, we, all of us may have something that's really strong in us that we wanna change about ourselves, and we can, you know, have conversations about it. We can understand our feelings about it. And then we can, you know, close that conversation by saying, yeah, I just got to stop doing that. I have to stop treating that person like that because I know they don't mean it. Well, bang, there we did it again. You know, so even
mhm,
well intended, we oftentimes will go to this strong movement in a direction that's we're not quite ready for yet. And so we make it a, you know, like it's a forced thing,
mhm.
and that doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so
Yeah,
I think sometimes people have this like, I have to do this. And like, they're just kind of like the Eeyore or the sad sacks of the world, where it's a general demeanor thing. Right. But then I
yep,
think that there's very well meaning people that are working hard to get better all the time, but they still get themselves stuck in these spaces, you know?
yeah, and again, like, not to be, like, nitpicky on the wording, but it is sometimes as simple as watching your
Yeah.
words, picking like, choosing a slightly better word,
Hmm.
and turn yourself talking to that because, um and I'm not talking about just being overly optimistic and using
Yeah. Right.
optimistic language just to trick yourself
Right. Exactly.
because,
Yeah.
again, if we habitually use a negative word,
Mhm.
that's gonna start causing us to think
Yep.
negatively, even though we don't intend to think
That's
negatively,
right.
right?
That's right.
So let's, like, start habitually using and it's not, like, overboard, but slightly more positive wording,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna move our mental state just a little bit more towards the positive,
Yeah.
which is gonna make us feel better.
Yeah. You know, one thing I forgot to say, I was excited to talk about this topic today. This topic came to us from a client and a friend of mine named Rob. And Rob has done tons and tons of work on himself and improved himself
Mhm.
amazingly. And he is in this place right now where he is battling cancer. And he has just given with such clarity. He's like, you know what? You guys should talk about this because I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that I had to do everything and, you know,
Mm.
everything was a doldrum. And he said, you know what? Now that I'm in this life of managing cancer, he said, I've changed. I am like, I get to do these things. I get to be with my family. I get to have coffee with my friends. I get to do all this stuff. And
Yeah.
he said, "You guys
Right,
should
like,
talk about that."
even, like, I get to take the garbage out,
Yeah. Yes.
right? So, like,
Actually, he said that
isn't it
about mowing the lawn.
isn't it amazing that what it takes to change
Mhm.
your perspective is being faced with your own mortality? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's a story that's repeated itself many, many
yeah,
times,
it sure
but
has.
it
It sure
it
has.
it it would be nice if we could get there without
Yeah.
going to that extreme.
Yeah, but so, Rabbi, if you're listening, thank you so much for this topic. It's a really, really good topic. It's a great thing for all of us to consider in our own development and what we want for ourselves and how we want to feel. You know, how we
Mhm.
want to feel is our general setting, and so much of it is very much at the core of the are you a get to or a have to kind of person.
Awesome. Well, I get to go pick up the dog poop in my yard now.
I get to watch Mitch do that. Ooh, I like that.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.